President Trump met with NATO Chief Mark Ruta yesterday after most of the 32 NATO nations refused to help the United States in opening and keeping open the Straits of Hormuz. The White House did not reveal contents of that conversation, but here's Karoline Levitt with the White House's response. Listen.
I have a direct quote from the President of the United States on NATO, and I will share it with all of you. They were tested, and they failed. And I would add, it's quite sad that NATO turned their backs on the American people over the course of the last 6 weeks, when it's the American people who have been funding their defense. As you know, President Trump will be meeting with Secretary Rutte in a couple of hours here at the White House, and I know he looks forward to having a very frank and candid conversation with him.
All right, here to discuss is the managing editor for the Daily Signal, Keith Koffler. Keith, glad to have you here. Let's talk about this NATO. Look, Donald Trump mentioned this a while back, and I thought about this. He said, look, we're always there when they call. But do you really think that the NATO alliance is going to be there when the United States calls us, we need help? Are they going to be there? And he said, I don't think so. I don't think so either, Keith. I don't see him coming. I mean, what is the Kingdom of Denmark going to come defend New York City? I mean, honestly.
It's never crossed their mind. And apparently, Mark Ruta was seen limping out of that Oval Office meeting and had to be escorted to the hospital. He got a trip to the woodshed like nobody's business. It was described as an open and frank discussion, which is Washington talk for brutal. Trump really went after him, and it was a really tough meeting, which Rutte deserved every moment of. And like you say, you know, we've been defending these European countries for 75 years. So Trump's a little mean to them. He's not always very polite and so forth. However, we are defending them and have it. And then when we need their help, not only are they unsupportive, but they won't even let us use their airspace. I mean, this is absurd.
Bases.
Yeah, there are bases that we set up there.
Bases. Yeah, we're not allowed to use them. So I heard somebody suggest this, and maybe this is too much, Keith, and maybe it's not, but I'll let you consider this. All right, so you're not going to let us use our bases in the UK or Germany or France or wherever. Tell you what, how about we bring home 120 or 150,000 U.S. military personnel and just close those bases? And when Russia comes knocking, which you're always paranoid about, Europe, you just deal with it. You go ahead and handle that yourself. How about that?
Yeah, they'll be weeping and crying and begging for those troops back because they have decided, it's a historic moment, has decided that they're not going to defend themselves anymore. And the only defense they have is us, and particularly in the case of Iran, because remember, Iran, the reason we attacked Iran was because they're developing nuclear weapons. What do they have? They have medium-range missiles that can hit Europe. They can't hit the United States yet. So we went to war to defend Europe against the possibility that the mullahs were going to drop nuclear bombs on their heads, and now they won't even come to help us out. So yeah, let's bring them home and defend the United States instead of being over there.
And here's the other thing. Keith. Couple years down, it's not going to happen overnight, but a couple years down the road from now, Venezuela will be putting out about 3.5 million barrels a day. They're at about 1 million now. They're all the way down to 700,000. Guyana is going to be up to about 1.5 million, maybe 2 million barrels a day because they're ramping up. If we continue production in America, see, we're about 8 million barrels short, give or take, 7 maybe any given day. But with Venezuela, Guyana, and more production in the United States, we don't need to mess with that anymore. Europe needs that oil. We don't. Right. So if you don't want the Strait of Hormuz open, I don't care. I don't care. China, I don't care if China gets oil. I don't care.
Right.
And should I?
Well, in the short term, there will be pain if the Strait of Hormuz is not opened. I mean, we do have to find a way to get that open. But in the long term, we're going to be extracting oil from Venezuela. We have plenty here in the United States. There is endless amounts of oil to be drilled still. And that's not a problem. We just have to take it out of the right places and as quickly as possible reduce our dependence on the Gulf. We should have done that many years ago. They've done this before, cut off the supplies of oil before during the Arab-Israeli War in 1973. And it's enough of depending on that region. We have our own access to oil that is much more easy to get over to the United States than having to depend upon a bunch of Iranian Revolutionary Guards to let it through.
Exactly. You know, here's what Europe should do. They should buy LNG from the United States. That's number one. We should help develop Venezuela, Guyana, and other friendly nations in the Western Hemisphere to produce all the oil we need. We should put California back. The Defense Production Act has been triggered by the president saying to a couple of companies in California, start producing again. California at one point produced 40% of all the oil in America. They have a tremendous amount of oil in California. And if not for the tree huggers and the bunny lovers, we would be using that oil today. Green New Dealers are dealing us bad cards, I think it's safe to say. We have solutions here because America has more natural resources than any other piece of real estate in the world. I'm talking timber, farmland, fresh water, oil, coal. You pick it, we've got it. And we should use it. Last word to you.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we have the oil here. I think that the whole, you do hear a lot less talk about global warming when gasoline prices go up, okay? The American people understand that they don't need to depend on expensive renewable fuels. And not only that, the solar panels come from China. So we don't need any of that. There's oil in Canada. There's oil here. We've just got to shift our focus, and that's what the president has been doing.
Yeah, you also hear a lot less about climate change and global warming when New York City and Washington get hit by 2 major blizzards in one winter. It's weird. When the snow gets 3 feet deep, they kind of forget about that stuff.
No, that was caused by global warming.
Nice seeing you today. Of course, I understand that. Global warming and climate change, it's a magical thing. It explains everything. Too much snow, climate change. No snow, climate change. It explains everything. It's magical. Keith, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Good stuff. So I'm having some fun today. Don't go anywhere. America's Voice Live will continue after a brief commercial break, where I'll discuss everyone's favorite time of the year.